This is WNEM TV5 News at 5.
3, 2, 1.
Here's to Flint.
Here's the flag.
The elderly in my neighborhood alone need fresh water.
The water is running out the faucets yellow and brown.
We've been dismissed for so long. We were ignored for so long. Medically, it's unacceptable.
We just want answers.
I worry about, the long-term effects.
As a parent, especially as a mom, your job is to protect your kid.
Don't drink the water.
That's all we still want, clean, fresh water.
Well, it's absolutely critical to the vital survival of the residents.
Here we are 5 years later, but we have some form of justice. And it's just the beginning of the end.
More than 6 years after the Flint water crisis began, residents are finally seeing some semblance of justice as the state reaches a $600 million preliminary settlement with tens of thousands of residents. Thanks for joining us tonight at 5. I'm Meg McLeod. It's been more than 6 years, 75 months since the city of Flint switched its water source from Detroit to the Flint River, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to one of the nation's greatest man-made disasters in history. We have complete team coverage of this historic settlement, beginning with my colleague David Custer. He joins us live from the Flint Water Treatment Plant. David?
Meg, thousands of Flint residents, especially younger ones, would be eligible for payments from the $600 million temporary settlement that was announced today. Now, it's stemming from civil lawsuits arising from the contamination of their drinking water and toxic lead. Now, some attorneys today detailed what that settlement will entail, and TV5's Rachel McCrary continues our team coverage now with more on what they were saying. Rachel.
David, yeah, attorneys on this case are calling the settlement historic and monumental, giving a whopping $600 million to the people who were impacted by the Flint water crisis.
We negotiated with the needs of the many in opposition to the interests of the few.
It's been a long time coming for residents in Flint who have endured years of poisonous water and health issues due to the state's neglect. The Flint water supply was converted from the Detroit water system to the much more corrosive Flint River in 2014 to save money, causing the crisis. Most of the money will go towards settling claims filed on behalf of children in Flint. The settlement breaks down like this. After attorney fees and expenses, children in Flint who were exposed will get 79.5% of the money. 64% of that money will go especially to children under 5. Adults and property owners will get 18% of the payout, and businesses will get 5%. And finally, 2% will go to programmatic relief. Today, attorneys on the case say it's a step closer to justice, adding that the deal was aimed at helping the most vulnerable.
We can't do divine justice. We can't go back years ago and make sure that this didn't happen. This has happened to this community that has already been very devastated in many other ways. And then this, upon everything else they went through, has happened. But what we can do through civil litigation is provide some semblance of justice. Attorney Ted Leppold says $12 million of the money will go to support the school children of Flint and to provide services to assist them. Another $35 million will be set aside for minors who choose to participate in the settlement later on in life, adding that residents who do not agree with this settlement can opt out and pursue other legal options. Trishelle Young, another attorney who has worked on this case for the last 18 months, says this settlement is just the beginning of the end.
Because we're headed now in the right direction. As Ted and Michael indicated, there is more to happen. There is more to occur. There are more defendants that we are pursuing because they are accountable for their actions.
And the Attorney General's office told us that much more needs to be done before that money can be dispersed, and they need the formal settlement to come out, and that could be another 45 days. Reporting in Flint, Rachel McCrary, WNEM TV5.
Rachel, thank you. Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Attorney General Dana Nessel did comment on today's settlement. The governor saying, quote, what happened in Flint should have never happened. Now, since her first day in office, the governor has said that she and the Attorney General would make it a priority to get the best settlement possible for Flint residents and their families. And getting that compensation is just one way that they are showing support for Flint families.
I want to acknowledge that Flint residents have been beyond patient.
We recognize that the settlement may not completely provide all that Flint needs. We hear and respect those voices and understand that healing Flint will take a long time. The uncertainty and troubles that the people of Flint have endured is unconscionable. It is time for the state to do what it can now, and that many will still feel justifiable frustration with a system and structure that at times is not adequate to fully address what has happened to the people in Flint over the last 6 years. Our ongoing efforts and today's settlement announcement are important steps in helping all of us take an important step forward.
Now, the governor made it very clear that protecting Michiganders and giving them access to clean water is a top priority, and she'll make sure she does everything she possibly can to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. Now, Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, you remember her name because she is the Flint pediatrician who first blew the whistle on the Flint water crisis. She also issued a statement today. It reads in part, as we are all now amidst another preventable public health crisis with so many parallels to Flint, money and resources only go so far. Protecting a community requires leadership and vision, creativity and passion. It demands a respect for science, equity, and the proactive protection of our greatest resource, our children. A statement from State Senator Jim Ananich reads, "The settlement is welcome news, but I have said from the very beginning that the demand for justice will not be satisfied until every person who had a hand in poisoning my city be held legally accountable, regardless of their political position or power."
This is WNEM TV5 News at 6.
More than 6 years after the fateful switch and more than 18 months of negotiation later, tens of thousands of Flint residents are finally seeing some form of justice for the physical, emotional, and financial toll of the water crisis. Thanks for joining us tonight at 6. I'm Meg McLeod. The state has announced a historic $600 million preliminary settlement. We have total team coverage of this development, starting with TV5's David Custer, who joins us live at the Flint water plant. David?
Meg, after 18 months of negotiations, the state will create a $600 million fund from which victims can seek payments. Now, it still must be approved by a U.S. district judge who is also overseeing lawsuits against the state. Now, tonight we caught up with Flint activist Melissa Mays. You may remember her. She was very vocal during the Flint water crisis. TV5's Rachel McCrary joins us live now in Flint with more on what Melissa had to say. Rachel.
David, that's right. While attorneys on this case are calling the settlement historic and monumental, Melissa Mays, an activist and Flint resident, says she has mixed feelings about the whole thing.
Pay medical bills, like the credit cards I've had to take out for my teeth, for my health care, for my all my medications. My kids need tutors.
Flint activist and resident Melissa Mays says the Flint water crisis still haunts her family. And today she's sounding off on the recent state settlement, which would give residents impacted by the water crisis $600 million.
We're tired, you know, we need to be able to find a recovery. And so this money, as long as it's not going to take away people's benefits, we can use it to get water filtration systems for our homes, replace interior plumbing.
But dividing up the money between over 20,000 people is not going to make anyone rich. Mays says it's just a starting off point to show that what was done to Flint was an injustice. Most of the money will go towards settling claims filed on behalf of children in Flint. The settlement breaks down like this. After attorney fees and expenses, children in Flint who were exposed will get 79.5% of the money. 64% of the money will go to children under 5. Adults and property owners will get 18% of the payout, and businesses will get 5%. And finally, 2% will go to programmatic relief. Today, attorneys on the case say it's still unclear how much each person would get in the settlement.
So until we know the full breadth and the full scope of individuals who will be participating, both minors and adults, it's not going to be known specifically. What we do know is that the system is going to be fair.
Mays says it doesn't fix what has been broken, but the money could help.
Still don't know how this is going to impact us, but this is a piece, and hopefully it's a statement saying that what was done to Flint was wrong. It was done to Flint, and that hopefully cities and states all across the country and world will see that it's not okay to poison people.
Now, the Attorney General says that it could be a while before this money can be dispersed until the formal settlement is out there, which could be another 45 days. But May says she doesn't expect to see any money for a long time. It could take even years, she said. Reporting in Flint, Rachel McCrary, WNEM TV5.
One little boy became the face of the water crisis. Do you remember Sincere Smith? Well, Time magazine put him on the cover of their magazine during the water crisis. Today, I sat down with him and his mom to get their reaction to the settlement.
A chatty 3-year-old had a lot to say after Time magazine made him the poster child for the Flint water crisis in 2016.
Are you proud of that magazine?
4 years later, and now 7-year-old Sincere Smith is a little shy. But he still carries around that Time magazine showing his innocent face damaged by the effects of the lead-tainted water.
He really going to trying to get his skin tone to even out, so he goes to the dermatologist.
Visible scars, reminders of why Mom Ariana moved her family out into the suburbs during the crisis, thinking it was the best thing for her family. But because she left the city, she lost the financial help she needed to take care of Sincere.
We moved out of the city and lost benefits, and then we had lost their medical care, everything that they was covered under when we were in Flint from the water crisis we had lost, so it was we had to come back.
And when she came back to Flint, Ariana tells me today she quickly realized little had changed, including her own trust for the safety of the water.
Our everyday life is still as it was in 2014, using bottled water for cooking, babies using bottled water, people with skin using bottled water. Those type of things are still happening.
I might save the money.
Oh, you gonna save it?
And while Ariana is appreciative that her family will receive a share of the $600 million settlement from the Flint water crisis lawsuit, she questions how you can put a dollar amount on human life.
There's so many people who have died. Their families can't bring them back. Money can't bring them back. My daughter's dad died from Legionnaire's disease. It's things like money can't bring those people back. I don't care how much money they gonna give us. I'll still miss him. She'll still never know her dad. People who have lost their family members, they can't get them back. It's no amount of money. That's just gonna be an okay amount.
Now, Ariana tells me because of the water crisis, she has become an activist. She goes around the country encouraging people of color to vote. So a lot has changed for this family since Sincere was on the cover of this Time magazine. Now, again, a lot of details will be coming out once this settlement is finalized and becomes official. And you can count on TV5 to stay on top of that, and we'll bring you every new detail as we learn it. For now, reporting live in Flint outside the Flint water treatment plant, I'm David Custer. Meg, back to you.